Welcome, everybody,
Oh,
to the
go ahead.
second hour of Mindshifters Radio. Today's Wednesday, September 17th, 2025, and we're glad you're with us. Go ahead, Melissa.
I've always felt good about the paying it forward type of thing, but the more I do this, the more I feel good about, like I almost have the power to just like pass that on, and it just affects other people, even though they don't even realize I'm affecting them or whatever. And it's a good feeling. I don't know. It just makes me feel good and feels like I'm having effect on the whole world. I don't know how to even put it, but
That's
it's
it
just nice.
exactly. You know, when Einstein was presented with some of the research that showed that two atoms, when they were entrained with each other, could be separated by miles, and literally, his thesis was nothing moves faster than the speed of light. But he called it spooky effect at a distance, that the impact, something had happened to one molecule instantly, like there wasn't the speed of light involved, it was instant. And he called it spooky, but that's exactly it. And each person who falls into the drama and trauma creates an energy. Each person who heals the drama and trauma and steps into being creates an energy. And fortunately, the higher the frequency, the more penetrating it is. The lower the frequency, the denser the hostility, the fear stuff is a denser frequency, so has a shorter extension possibility and reach, where the higher energy, there's nothing we know of in the material realm that can stop it. So I'm with you 100% and excited
Yeah.
about the
One of,
possibilities.
one of the really cool things I've learned in this last week, and I guess it never really dawned on me, was every time since I really kind of, I guess, got into all this stuff, however you want to put it, is I've always kind of reached out when I've come to like an impasse with something struggling within me, and I've been able to kind of like do worksheets and figure out where it's coming from within me, but it's always been about me and some of my own struggles. When I kind of reached out to you over the, like, when the Charlie Kirk thing happened, and I thought it was an outer thing. I wasn't saying, okay, why is this about my life? Of course, it ended up being about my life, of course, as everything is. But it was the first time I wasn't saying, well, I'm upset about something in my life, and if that makes sense. But it actually kind of, I don't know, I guess it kind of took me over a new hump. And I don't know, it took me in kind of a different direction and opened up a whole new door for me about a lot of stuff, which in turn, of course, helped this whole week kind of go in a different direction. I don't know if I'm kind of even making sense. It was just, I felt like a whole new door opened up for me.
You are making absolute sense.
Yeah, and it's just kind of a neat thing, and it's kind of like I just kind of feel like it's an ongoing thing, which of course life is just an ongoing thing, but I just feel like it's one of those things to where it's just like if you just keep taking the baby steps along the way, it just keeps opening up more and more and more and keep getting better and better. And I don't know, maybe I don't know how to put it in words, but it's just a great thing, and you just keep feeling better and better as you keep doing the work, I guess. I don't know how to put it.
Right on. You got it. I'm with you 100%.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you, and thank everybody, because it just, like you said, it's a team thing, and it just, and I felt it more so in the last like 4, 5, 6 days than probably the whole thing. And it's just really been awesome, and I appreciate everybody, because I just feel like everybody's right there. When I made that comment about that, show up and sing even when life's not going good, I just kind of feel like everybody's there with me singing, and it's just been a really, really good feeling.
Cool. Nice. And of course, there are the layers that need to be worked through. When you look at the dramas and traumas that family systems and the cultural dynamics of, some of the insanity that's going on in the world, and has unfortunately infected so many family systems, there can be some, it isn't Dr. Feelgood. There can be some pretty heavy duty times. But if you keep putting one foot in front of the other, the way becomes clear. For me, personally, what I'm seeing and experiencing is just subtler and subtler levels of that connectedness and that sweetness of life.
Yeah, and like maybe I guess the way to put it is this is maybe the first time I was kind of diving into something that wasn't just directly trying to fix something about me. I mean, it's always fixing about me, but I don't even know what I'm trying to say, but it's awesome. I guess is just the way to put it.
Nice.
And thank you. I'll shut up.
Delighted, young lady. Anyone else, any thoughts to share before we step back in? I was starting to delineate some of the differences between the Aramaic and the Greek. I've been sort of organizing that in a new way with what I've been doing with this new writing. So I'm going to move in that direction unless somebody has a thought for us. Question? Something to share? Anything exciting in your world? All right. Well, let's just then move forward into looking at that Aramaic versus the Greek twist on the teachings of Yeshua and how much has been lost by allowing the material mind to inform our perception rather than allowing breathing in directly the actuality of what is possible. So, of course, the forgiveness process in Aramaic was literally a living act of letting go. And in the Greek, the word that they translate it to as aphesis rather than shebag, which is to cancel, again, this living, breathing process. And in the Greek arena, it became, a noun. Again, a process became a noun. It was legal. You will be pardoned. You'll be let off the hook. And Ruka, this breathing life force that lives in us, becomes an abstract spirit, some sort of immaterial substance. The presence of the state of human beingness, of divine life, became, this state of being, all of a sudden became a political kingdom of God, if you would, rather than this living, breathing state of being. So the practices that were actions to take became concepts, rather than doing the work, it became talking about doing the work. So there was this conversion into creed concepts rather than the activity of cleaning up your life, cleaning up the mind. And it moved from the immediacy of Yeshua's teaching, that we can feel the breath now. In this instant, we can literally breathe out. And, this is what I hear you talking about exactly, Melissa, is that you can breathe out and let go of that hostility and fear now and let something else living come alive in us rather than a belief, a debate, or what have you. Then the Latin language came in, and the Latin language was very much about law and guilt and the empire. The Roman world absorbed what to that point had been a living teaching, Aramaic. The Greek texts were translated into Latin, and then came another really sad, crazy distortion. This Latin culture that was built on empire and law, it interpreted everything through the lens of guilt and debt, and now it's obedience. You've got to obey rather than be attuned and living a truth. You're supposed to obey some sort of external. So we see the degradation of this whole Aramaic teaching as it moves further and further away from the original meanings of the Aramaic words, Aramaicisms. So the Latin, really came in and imposed this imperial control. The king was now in charge. It's kind of a little bit like some of what we're seeing right now. This is the same similar kind of transition. So now, rather than a living, breathing process of incarnating in your physiology and in this world as a human being, as the active presence of love, it became participation in sacraments and mediated by a clergy. Now, it doesn't knock sacraments. There are sacred things that can support us and assist us. But if it becomes about the ritual of a sacrament, rather than the bringing of the sacramental energy into our physiology, then it's been lost. And the whole center, there's one point where they talk about how Yeshua breathed on the disciples. And then they converted it back into right there. It says, this was about breath, and it became, and then this Holy Spirit came upon them. Some disembodied spirit, something like this wasn't lost in translation. The translation never happened. So this breath-centered state of being in the Latin system became this judicial system of guilt and pardon enforced by church, authorities, and of course aligned with the authority of the empire. This living Aramaic path of inner healing was transformed into a legal judicial structure under Rome. And then you come into, the next level of transition away from the Aramaic, the next distortion. We go into the old English system of thought. And now it's about fear and obedience. Yeshua says, having Rakhma in your mind, having this condition in your mind is the key to having a human life, to be living in the process of love present in your physiology. And then he says, for upon this hangs the law and all its prophets. Yeshua was saying, if you want to understand, if you want to comprehend what I'm talking about, you've got to have this condition active in you. And when you got it into the Old English, it became about fear and obedience to the king. King James was a pretty bawdy guy, if you look historically, and you look at those who ran the translation for him, and the things they did to each other are absolutely horrific. I mean, there's one case where the man who, and I'm not remembering his name right now, but he basically ran under the king a translation that was directed by the king, who wanted to have the divine right of kings solidified and his authority put in place. And there were preachers who wrote things that he didn't agree with or preached sermons that he didn't agree with. And in one case, he oversaw, he didn't actually directly sentence the man, but he oversaw the imprisonment of a preacher because he had a theological difference with the guy who was right there under the king. He had him put in prison naked in the winter in England. And when it came time, it was over a period of months, when it came time for his supposed trial, he was so sick he couldn't attend. And the punishment enforced was that of splitting this preacher's nose in two because he disagreed with the authority of the Archbishop of Canterbury. How crazy, how insane. So these distortions deepen and deepen, deepen in each set. Now, sin in the Old English was about crime and law breaking. Hell was no longer a metaphorical garbage pit. I mean, literally, in the Aramaic, the Gehenna was the word that was translated as hell, was a fiery place, which was literally a garbage dump outside of Jerusalem, where they burn trash, and people who couldn't afford to have relatives buried were taken there to be burned. Gehenna. So this metaphorical, when you have an absence of life, you will suffer, and the Gehenna was the symbol of suffering, all of a sudden became love, the creator, who, according to Yeshua, says it is love's goodwill to bring you the kingdom, and has wondrous plans for you. All of a sudden, now love has created an eternal torture chamber. And so the Aramaic, standing firm in the breath and the presence of love, to live in a trusting alignment, became faith, i.e., which meant you better mentally agree with the doctrines I prescribe or you'll end up in prison. And, at this point, you look at the tribal systems that are going on in Old England, you look at the feudal overlords, and obedience was the key. And if you don't obey, then you're going to suffer for eternity. And when the original message of Yeshua was about inner healing, and if you'd fallen from grace, here was a man who was there to support you and assist you by holding the space to lift you back to your original state. So inner healing in the presence of love was overshadowed by moralism, the fear of hell, and the degradation of loyalty to kings and priests, who some of them were pretty bizarre. So sadly, this thing that had at one time been symbolized by love all of a sudden became a fear-based obedience, rather than to live in a way that dissolves hostility and fear and sadness and grief and rage and trauma, and leaves you breathing in the presence of love. And that's just so monumentally consequential. And you can trace through this series of shifts, and that's one of the things that I'm working on with this new book. Everything they said about me, that's all Greek to me. These series of shifts, the heart of Yeshua, it's talked about, but it's talked about as some legalistic thing out there if you meet the conditions that please whoever is running the show right now. So the the true focus on the experience, not talking about, but the present experience of love became progressively obscured. And the practices, the focus on the breath, Yeshua agreed and submitted to having water poured on him by John the Baptist. But you'll notice he never did such a thing. He did baptize people, but how did he baptize them? We're told by the Greeks he baptized them in the Spirit. What does that mean? The breath, ruka. It was a living, breathing. I mean, you think about people, you watch people who are in trauma and pain, and you simply give them the space to open their breath and breathe, and watch them in a period of minutes transform from trauma and pain to a direct experience of love. Add forgiveness to that, and you see, literally, we see it all the time, transformation right before our eyes. We hear it on this radio show all the time. Not because of theological beliefs, not because somebody said, here's a dogma, you better believe this or you're going to hell. Nothing to do with threat, but it's an invitation. Oh, we have a tool for that. We have an app for that. But you see the degradation when you really track it down. So you have this hierarchy replaced, that steps in and replaces the direct experience of what they called the third aspect of the Trinity. Once again, was Ruka Kudsha, the presence of the breath, the deliverer of love into physiology. And the church became this authority and mediator. And then Yeshua, he's really clear. If somebody tells you that this state of being I'm talking about is over there or over there or over there, believe them not, for it is within and around you. And that all became postponed to an afterlife. And what was designed to be inclusive all of a sudden became narrowed. Well, it's only for those who go along with what I believe. And the active presence of love became fear, overshadowed by threats of eternal punishment. So, is there such a thing as a Greek translation of the Aramaic teachings of Yeshua? Not even close. Oh, as I just went through, it hits on some of the high points. Hey, this sounds pretty good. But it gets buried in this legalism and fear rather than brought to life in the living breath that literally is a direct gift of something you today share with the Creator. And when you give it space in you, will literally transform you. So what were originally presented by Yeshua as tools for dissolving hostility, fear, grief, rage, practice methods of breathing, releasing, living as the presence of love were replaced by externalized doctrines, rules, threats, and humanity was left with a religion in place of a relationship, a creed in place of breath, and a fear in place of love. In the basic Aramaic Yeshua, his message is pretty simple. The breath of the Creator lives in you. Let it flow through you, and you will be alleviated of fear, hostility. You will be aligned with love, and you will live as you were designed to live here and now in that community of love. Degrade down one step, and let's listen to the Greek Yeshua. Believe in these concepts about spirit in the kingdom, or else. And then Latin becomes confess your sins, obey the church, and receive your pardon. People running around with bumper stickers on their cars. I've been forgiven. You'll notice if you read, even this even comes through in the Greek, that forgiveness is not something applied to people. It's applied to the error energies, the sin energies that we hold within us. Remembering that sin is an archer term that simply means off the mark. And then you come into the Old English, and it's now fear hell, obey priests, and believe or be damned. With a touch of love here and there, a conversation about it. But where are the practical tools for living it? And if you're in a community of people who buy into a particular dogma, it can be an easy thing to talk about. But in the back room, when the stress is up and the chips are down, is that the real God that people turn to? The one of love, the one who gives us and shares with us his breath? Or is it the one of gossip and slander and hostility and fear? So this is, the focal point of this new project we're working on, at least as a way of expressing it and bringing it into practice within the world. Does that fit and make sense for anybody, for everybody? Anyone have any thoughts to share? Push that mute button. Say hello. But not everybody at once, of course.
Okay, Michael.
Go for it, young lady. Welcome.
I I love what you're saying, and I also want to say that my daughter being a priest she refers to the Greek a lot when she's
Yeah,
studying and preaching. Nevertheless, we need what you're saying so badly, but on the other hand, there is for her, she has used the the best of what we got, even though interpreted, not even translated, but interpreted through the Greek and Latin.
right.
She is one of the healthiest people, in spite of going through very big difficulties with her son. She is able to, it's like she's applying it the way we use the tools. And she's found her way there. Just want to put a plug that people who
Yes,
are doing church are apt to be getting some good stuff in there, which is
absolutely.
miraculous when you think of the changes that were made, that there's enough powerful living tissue in even that of course we're led all over the place. So many denominations are not doing as well in that department, in my opinion, but I wanted to say that.
Yeah, I'm
Just
with you. And I agree. I
yeah.
mean, over the years, I've run into many, many ministers who have never been exposed to the Aramaic, who I think because of who they are and because they're following their guidance and their intuition more than they're following dogma and doctrine, are bringing
Mm-hmm.
transformation to people's lives. I think in particular, I used to teach up at a place called John 23rd in Hartford City, Indiana. And there was a priest and a nun there that they were just awesome at supporting people in healing.
Mm,
But little of their conversation was about what, like where the King James, like I
right.
remember one time we were in a parking lot and there was a truck in front of us and there was a bumper sticker on the truck that said, if it's not in the King James, it's not the Bible. And,
Agree.
you know, I think there are many people who have literally been touched by the breath and are there
I
as
think
a
so.
space for transformation for sure.
Mm-hmm. They often talk about it in terms of being a mystic. She said, one thing my daughter has said is, Mom, if I talk to a sheikh or I talk to a Hindu Swami or, a rabbi, they're all mystics, and that's when we connect.
Yes, that's where it happens.
Yeah.
And to me, that's what Yeshua was leading us to, and that's where the intellect has dragged us from.
Mm-hmm.
And fortunately, there are still, thank God, people around who are opening to that breath, into that intuition, into that mystical perspective.
Yeah.
So that's a really important point for me to be making as I develop this, for sure.
Well, it'll be wonderful because you won't be saying you're wrong and I'm right. You're already saying we all have access to it. Here's the way. I mean, I love what you're planning to do. I have printed out that long, the big plan of going AI or chat GPT or however you're going to do it. I
Right.
haven't spent any time on it yet, but it's very exciting. And it's almost as if you're on the beach and you're throwing the pebbles in every possible direction without intending to claim it. You're letting it go to the wind to be picked up all over.
That's my hope. So, and I certainly will appreciate as it unfolds. We'll be sharing it more and more. Everyone's guidance, and that's a really good point that you make, because there has been, I think, an tremendously horrendous uh, degradation,
Mm.
and yet there are still people who are living it,
Yeah.
and that needs to be uh, that needs to be integrated. So I definitely appreciate that piece of input.
Toward the end of The Way of Mastery, and that is just the most amazing book. Toward the end, and I haven't spent time with it, but it appears that some other kind of alloy comes in. I haven't talked to Dr. Tim about this. Somewhere in there, toward the end, they're saying Shanti Christo, which is the sort of organization around the production of this book and the
Right.
disseminating it, sending it out. You have to come this way. Now, I shouldn't even be saying this because I haven't done enough, but it seems as if it's a danger when you get a great set of tools that you begin to say, you can't get there except by this. You have to do this. And you keep saying you don't have to. I mean, I yell at you about still point breathing all the time. You're talking about breathing, and I have to interpret in a way that I can do that breathing. And I've been frightened because I thought, oh my God, if I don't do it right, I can't do it. But you're not really saying that.
It's an old power person message, right?
Yeah, I know. God. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you breathe, things change. If people who don't breathe, they tend to stay locked down.
Mm-hmm.
It's that simple. Are there effective ways that bring deeper layers and levels of cleansing? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And just the simple idea of just in the middle of drama and trauma, taking the breath is life transforming.
Yeah.
And and that's what we want to offer people is tools for life transforming at the same time affirming every tool they've already got that they're using.
Yeah.
Not that there's that there's something, this is the only way. It's like what you've got that's working for you, share it with me, please. I want to know about it too.
Mm-hmm. That's
To
really
me,
good.
it's about being an eternal student. I love how Dr. Tim often affirms this idea of, I approach something like I don't know anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
And that opens my brain to be able to receive new information and to learn.
Yeah.
And to me, it's as far as I know, when I look at how long I've been engaged in it, and for me personally, the new energetic insights and experiences with it, it's like just scratching the surface.
Hmm. Yeah.
But what a difference it makes.
Well, with the tools, you have a tool, you have a thing. And when you're in rotten bad shape, you can go to the thing. It isn't as if you have to have the thing, but you have a direct way of getting there when you're in bad trouble.
Well, if I have this load of dirt that I want to move, I can do it with a teaspoon.
Hmm.
I can do it with a shovel. I
Yeah.
can do it with a bulldozer. Give me
Yeah.
the bulldozer, please. And to me, when we go back to the Aramaic Yeshua's words, when it comes to the mountains of emotional, mental, relational garbage that we've been fed by our culture and by some of our family systems, pretty much everybody needs a bulldozer.
Right.
So
I wanted to ask you where our friend Susan F. is.
Susan is doing a yoga retreat in Hawaii. And so
Okay.
she's not going to be on the show for the next 2 weeks. She sent me a text yesterday and said she's really locked in on that for about the next 2 weeks.
Good. I'm
So we're not
glad
going to
to
hear from her for over the next couple of weeks.
glad to find out where she's at. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. And
Well,
and in her text she shared that there's so much process happening for her. She's still prepping. She's going to do Wednesday's codependence
mhm.
guided session, and then she's going to have a couple of weeks off of that. But she shared that there's just been so much processing. I mean, the way she's taking this information and turning it around is amazing.
Yeah, it totally is. Well, Michael, you love and often talk about Carl Jung, and he says to bring the shadow material out, and
Yes.
he implies throughout that it's not bad stuff, but we get the
No.
feeling that it's very bad and very dark, and bringing it out at this is where I'm mixing up your show and Tim Hayes's. Tim's been reading The Way of Mastery about the source of our creative impulse, which will be felt as a desire. But the desire is not a bad thing or a good thing, even. It is just it. It's God's way of being, our responding to God's creativity. We are we feel the impetus of the source coming through ourselves if we're quiet and breathe, I'm sure. So in this process, we are invited to feel desire. Some desires will be things that we've always been told are bad, like sexual desires or wanting to eat a bowl of ice cream or whatever, things that may be looked down upon, but to just let them come into our consciousness as a creative, very welcome, creative, natural impulse. So bringing the shadow material in under that umbrella of it's perfectly safe to do this, then we get it
Yes.
all out there. And the implication is we can't get into heaven, that's just a metaphor, unless we have all the bags of garbage right with us and we've brought them out into the light and we present our entire whole selves to God, not just the goody two shoes that's been acting right in church. I don't know where I'm going with this.
Well, I think this was a piece, if I remember correctly, it was Paul that had a fairly good handle in this one, though he didn't know how to handle his own stuff. He did speak about all things are good
Paul, you said.
to those who are connected to
Are you
the
talking
active
about
presence of love.
St. Paul? Is that who you're
Yes.
mentioning? Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Got it.
So to those who are connected, In other words, like, okay, so there's this wonderful thing. I think we're all designed to have 5H relationships. Our relationships, we're as human beings designed by the Creator to have happy, healing, holy, healthy, horny relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And mine's disconnected from love, made up a story about sex is dirty, save it for the one you love. Like now there's something wrong with that impulse.
That is
And
so deep
so
in our culture too. Oh God,
oh
it
yeah,
is.
it's I mean how deep is it? Sex is dirty, save it. I mean, it's just like that's almost a mantra in the culture. And so when that becomes a mantra and this idea of a living, breathing teaching based in love is transformed into a legalistic you better obey,
Mm-hmm.
then that's something that impulse becomes a dissociated impulse. Now it's part of the shadow. It isn't
Yeah.
that even there's such a thing as a shadow, but
Mm-hmm.
thinking makes it so. By applying the mind energy of that, which is off the mark, then we distort an impulse. And as long as that distorted impulse, because of the way we think, keeps that impulse in the unconscious, then it unconsciously comes up and bites us in the butt. But when
So
and as far as I understand, as far as I've been able to discern, there's only one way that anybody has discovered, and it was discovered 2,000 years ago by Yeshua, to bring the shadow, the distorted impulse, the thing that's been attached to mind energy of some form of hostility or fear. There's only one way to consistently, persistently bring the shadow forward, as Carl Jung says, until the unconscious becomes conscious. So, what happens when somebody applies the tool of forgiveness? All of a sudden, they have a memory. Oh, yeah, I remember when, click. Now, the distorted impulse from the creator that because of thinking, because of rule making, because of the insanity of the non being mind, cause that energy to become hidden or artificial artificially created a hiding place by creating a veil through holding the breath. Now, through forgiveness and breath, that distorted, what has become a destructive impulse or the shadow comes forward, and it's when it comes forward cleanly and clearly in the presence of active love, it's transformed. So we go from the culture's message of sex is dirty, save it for the one you love. And in the scriptures, you hear the creator saying to humans, like, who even told you you were naked? Like, who told you that? Where did that come? Where did that crap come from?
Mm-hmm.
So to me, that would be the difference between, is it something we've distorted and therefore has become a destructive impact, shadow? And when we bring it forward through exposure to active presence of love and breath, then it's transformed back to exactly what it was designed to be. An awesome, in that particular case, an awesome, sweet gift of communion, of connectedness, of pleasure, and I think of a pathway for directly connecting to the Creator.
okay, I have a question then. Where is it in the Bible that I think Jesus says, if you think a lustful thought towards someone other than your wife, you're committing adultery? I know I've butchered that, but do you know
No,
what
but
I'm talking about?
that's pretty accurate, yeah. And I'm in
Okay.
agreement. I'm in agreement. I think that we are designed as human beings to to have these deep, intimate relationships,
Mm-hmm.
and that, there is integrity in the relationship. Like I know one of the things that Jeannie and I watch oftentimes in the evenings is AGT. We love it. We love the music, the creativity that shows up, and the generosity that the judges have toward anybody that comes on, wherever they're from, whatever their creed, their color, their country, it doesn't matter. It's awesome. But there are one or two women that often show up on the judges panel who it seems that their whole identity is locked up in their breasts and they have to show them.
Yeah.
And when I'm here watching that with Jeannie or by myself, it's like, lady, put some clothes on. I have no interest whatsoever in any kind of visual contact or anything that would resonate any kind of sexual thought in me toward you. I have a wife, and I am absolutely 1000% in integrity with her in thought, word, action, and appearance. You know, at Heartland, I don't know if you remember when you came out to the intensive, but one of the things we announced, and this statement was one that grew over years, because we at Heartland, you know, one of the things that a lot of people are addicted to is sexuality.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, in the early days, people would come and we'd find them in the back room
Yeah.
doing their addiction. And
Mm-hmm.
so we came, you know, we started out not having a deep understanding of regulatory speech. We said no sex rule.
Mm-hmm.
And then over time it became, because we learned that, you know, saying no really didn't work. But what we invited people to do when they came to Heartland, you know, if you're in an intimate relationship, wonderful, we support you. That's a gift from God. And if you're not, please don't start one here, because what if it's your addiction, then you'll end up resenting that person, because that addiction will be what causes you to miss out on the work you could be doing. So our invitation when we do an intensive now is to be in total integrity with yourself. And in terms of relationship, if you're attracted to somebody, great. If you want to form a relationship with them after the intensive, do it. But while you're here, if you didn't come in a relationship with that person, then please be in integrity in thought, word, action, and appearance.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the language that we develop, so that we are in integrity. Excuse me, my take is energetically, when I think from an energetic point of view, I do not have the right to be in the intimate space of another human being unless I'm invited to be there.
You know, it's very interesting you're saying that, because somebody said recently to me, an addict feels entitled.
Yes.
And that really just zapped right through it. And when pairing that with what Dr. Tim's introducing in the beautiful Way of Mastery early chapters about
Mm-hmm.
the impetus of desire, the initial desire is absolutely fine. But from there, something else has to be, as you said, you have to have integrity, or you have to regulate, watch, be aware, include, don't shut down. The shadow is always going to be okay once it's fully out there and honestly
Well,
dealt
it's
with.
not a shadow.
Yeah, it stops
Unless
being
it's
one.
under the veil, there is no shadow.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And
Well,
so if there's an impulse that turns into harm somehow, then apply forgiveness, breathe, and whatever it is that's behind that impulse, the memory, the generational pattern, whatever it is, will surface. And in exposure to love and the gentlest of breaths, then the shadow disappears. It's gone.
yeah.
And it becomes purity. And I, you know, when I talk about when we started Heartland around the sex thing and what it became, I speak of myself too. I was brought up in a culture that, you know, you can look, but you better not touch. Well, I
Yeah.
say that's a fraud and a lie. Don't ever say that to a kid. No, excuse me. You have no right to put your eyes intimately into the sexual space of another human being. You don't have the right. If you have a relationship with this person, you're invited there, and you're inviting them, yes, now you have an opening for that. But otherwise, we don't even have the right to put our eyes into that space with a mind of sexual intent, would be my take. That's out of integrity with our own energy, and especially if we're in a marriage, it's out of integrity within our marriage. That's my offering. That's my latest understanding, and it wasn't always that way for me. Believe me, that was
Yeah.
not the culture I was brought up in. That's one I had to heal through.
Right.
You know, I
Of
was brought
course.
up in a culture. Well, hey, as many as you can bed, that makes you the hero.
Yeah.
No, that's something that destroys lives on both
Mhm.
sides of the fence
Right.
and
And we're
leads to
very,
insanity.
yeah. Well, and we're very confused about that because, as you say, the women sitting up there are revealing parts of themselves that might maybe would be better covered, but they're capitalizing on an inappropriate desire or whatever. Anyway, it's complicated on both sides. Yeah,
So integrity to me is key in it.
that's a
That's all.
great word.
And I think
Yeah,
I think that integrity with sexual energy is a really important thing.
but always to be aware of it as a desire. Its origin, it is the creator creating through you, but then what do you do with it?
Yes,
You don't clamp down on it or judge yourself or feel ashamed. That's where our work comes in, to remain,
exactly.
to welcome it, observe it, and let that be part of your rich creativity, but it needn't hurt anyone.
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
that would be my take. I'd go with you on that.
Well, for us addicts, it's a constant um, to remain vigilant. For instance, I'll give an example. I had a young priest in my church. He was a curate, 17 years younger than me, looked like my family, so I automatically felt comfortable and drawn to him. Beautiful person who I got a crush on. And here I'm married, and I'm not intending to go anywhere, and I'm not intending to do anything. But I had trouble handling this addiction, as I would call it. But we became friends, and he became a bishop, and he's now retiring from being a bishop. And I've just learned about it, and I have found a section of my journal where verbatim, a wonderful discussion, he and I, it was always a very pure, outwardly pure relationship. And I just battled my own addiction within myself.
Right.
I've had this is where I'm asking, is this addiction again? I want to send him this little excerpt of funny, wonderful little interchange that we had years ago when he was this young curate in our parish. But I haven't decided to send it because I can't seem to decide whether I'm just hoping for a hit. I mean, there it is. I'm
So
sitting here. Whoa.
so my offering is that back when you were with him,
Mm-hmm.
that you've acknowledged there was an addictive aspect to it, which means that, the only reason addiction occurs, at least my take on it, is that there is a, a chemical. If one isn't using a chemical like alcohol or drugs, there
Mm-hmm.
is an internally produced chemistry that
Mm-hmm.
anesthetizes against pain.
Oh yeah.
And it sounds like the pain in this relationship that you still haven't resolved is about fear. So I do a couple of worksheets around fear and send it to them. Clean up the addiction, clean up the part, when you touch into why, what's the addiction thing that draws me? What's the underlying pain that makes me want to reach out here and anesthetize myself? Do the work around that and free yourself of it, and you'll be clean and clear, and it'll be another conversation with another awesome human being. And there are a lot of awesome human beings out there to
Oh,
relate
there
to.
totally are. Yeah. Yeah.
But
Well, I
where
have.
the addiction comes in is when there's it's been the behavior, whatever it is used as an anesthetic against some sort of pain resonated in that situation. And
Yeah.
that would be some sort of pain around intimacy. And so I do
Oh,
some worksheets on freeing yourself of that pain around intimacy. And I bet your mind will just be clean and clear to be able to just talk to him like, gee, another awesome human being, rather than the underlying fear that was going on 17 years ago that still hasn't been resolved.
well, you've hit close enough that I think I know what it is. It's not exactly what you say about a fear of intimacy. It's something else, but I got it
Yeah.
anyway.
Okay. But
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah. There's something,
There's
whatever it
something.
is. But the thing that had me bring the word fear in is that the way you spoke about sending him that piece of information back then sounded like there was a fear about it, about
Oh, that
sending it
he'd
to him
be
today.
horrified. That he would
And
be
and
grossed out and horrified.
okay,
That's true.
then I do a worksheet around that fear because that's an aspect of it that will help to dissolve whatever's underlying,
Oh,
whatever's
okay.
under the surface.
Wow, this is cool. All right, thank you. Wow.
Delighted, honored. Any other thoughts for you, young lady?
Too bad. There are tons, but it's 2 minutes of the hour. I'm going to keep quiet.
Well, there's probably another 2 minute thought in there that would benefit everybody. Or
Well,
maybe
Jeannie
somebody else has
gave.
got a quick thought for you. Go
Okay,
ahead.
go ahead. Let somebody else.
Jeannie?
Yeah.
We don't really have time to start another whole conversation, so go for it.
Jeannie said, Louise Hay said that arthritis and diabetes, I think it was diabetes, she said, it's a wish for control. I just don't connect with that particularly. I'm in a phase of letting my life happen. I feel as if I've let go of a lot of control. Why am I suddenly wanting control? Maybe I'm fooling myself. Anyway, that's a conversation for another time. Why one would get a diagnosis of I mean, it's an older person's thing and it's in my family, a lot of it. But I hate to think that I'm trying to keep control about something. Fully.
Yeah. And if you hate the idea of control, your words fly up, your thoughts remain control. A worksheet on control might be appropriate. Pay attention to your words. They're always telling you what's in your unconscious.
Okay, Michael, I'm going to say it again. Shut up. Just the fact that you might be right
I'm
on
just
target.
feeding your words back to you.
Mm-hmm. All right, that's very helpful.
And joining you in the space of being able to breathe deeply and let everything open and let
Thanks.
loose of whatever has gone on generationally, whatever, just letting it go and letting that presence of love into your physiology, into your mind, fully, completely through every cell of your structure.
Jeannie texted something that we all ought to have a look at, and we don't have time, so I'm just going to copy it to and look it up. Thanks, Jeannie, about AI and the NIV and other things. Yeah, we missed that too.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jeannie.
And Dawn just unmuted. I don't know if you've got a quick comment.
Go for it, Dawn. Can't hear you. It sounds like you've got marbles in your mouth. Try again.
Hello?
There you go.
Okay. Yeah, I got to get a new set of corded earphones. I remember you saying a long time ago that diabetes can be related to the emotion of not feeling like you deserve the sweetness in life.
Oh my God. Jeannie said there is no sweetness, and there's tons of sweetness. So what you say is perfect.
Life. It's the flow of sweetness of the presence of love that we're designed to be in continuously, would be my take.
And not being able to metabolize it, Dawn. I mean,
well, I think that's what he was saying. I mean, you're resistant to sugar. That's insulin resistance. And so because you don't believe that you deserve that sweetness. I think that's what Michael said, but he's right on the call, so you can ask him.
That's very cool.
Well, I think what you're referring to is a thought that I'd put forward is that oftentimes I think diabetes comes from not deserving the sweetness.
Oh my God.
And then tying that together with the underlying energy that needs to be resolved is that of grief. And when the grief is resolved, the pancreas kicks back in. It's, where the energy is overlaid is on the pancreas.
Mm, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you. Thanks, Dawn.
Cool. So I invite you with a clean, clear mind to be in communication with this gentleman who was a bishop in your church, and being able to enjoy the sweetness of the connection with him, having resolved the underlying dynamic that you kept hidden all those years ago.
Wow.
So breathing with you into it, it's safe.
That fits with the way of mastery perfectly. I won't go into it, but yeah, it's like everything connected today. Okay. Thank you,
Yay.
Michael.
All right. Have a blessed one. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Thanks for the comment, Don.